Hello, everyone. This is Glen Guyton, your cultural competency navigator and diversity inclusion in the workplace speaker. How are you doing? How you doing? Good to see you. Hey, make sure you take a little time and click that subscribe button. That's right. Click it. Click that subscribe button for me. And so I know that you are paying attention and that you like this channel. I would appreciate it so much. Well, today we're going to be talking about implicit bias. And you know what? We all have implicit bias. So what are we going to do about it? That's my question. What are you going to do about the bias that you have? You have bias, right? Because things have happened to you in your life. And that leads to implicit or unconscious bias. We all have it. It's nothing that you can really do to escape it, right? We think about this work of diversity, inclusion, and equity, and we start freaking out, right? Especially if we are in the dominant culture. White guys. I know white guys are freaking out right now. I'm sorry, I'm not a white male, but I know white males are freaking out right now because nobody wants to be called racist. Nobody wants to be called sexist. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on going on with people as the culture shifts. But I want to tell you, it's okay. Hey, it's okay. Now, it's not okay to be racist. I'm not saying that, but it's okay for us to deal with our bias. It's okay for us to start looking at ways to improve who we are so that we can have better workplaces, right? You want to have a better workplace. You want to go to work, right? And you want to be peaceful. You want to be stress-free. You want to do the things that, you want to meet your sales goals. You want to be able to reach the communities that you have been called to meet if you are in the public sector. But sometimes bias gets in the way, and sometimes bias is a thing that we have a hard time controlling, right? We're not even aware of it sometimes, but I'm going to help you today. Yes, I am going to help you deal with some of your bias. So what is bias? I have a really cool definition I'm going to show you right now. So pay attention. Are you ready? Oh, look at that. Look at that. So bias. It's let's see if I can blow that up for you. There you go. Look at that. An implicit association about people, places, or situations, often on mistaken, inaccurate, or incomplete information, and include the personal histories we bring to the situation. So that's what bias is. And so we all have lived our lives and we've been places, things have happened to us, and we have bias. So look at these pictures here. So I have a picture of, see if you can see that. Can you see that right there? That's a Tasmanian devil. So imagine that you were walking around in Australia, and I'm hoping to go to Australia with my son pretty soon here, but imagine you were walking around in Australia, right? And this Tasmanian devil comes and bites you on your toe. So from now on, every time you see a Tasmanian devil, you're going to be freaking out. Oh, it's the Tasmanian devil. What do I do? What did I do? Taz is attacking me. You are well within your rights to have this bias against Tasmanian devils. And anytime you see a Tasmanian devil, it could be on a TV show or at the zoo, you start freaking out. You can't even watch Bugs Bunny anymore because you're just freaking out. I'm biased. Oh, you're just biased against Tasmanian devils because you had that one experience with Taz. I don't know what this Tasmanian devil was doing. Maybe he had a bad day today. Maybe you stepped on his tail by accident when you were on your walkabout. I don't know. Maybe you interrupted his didgeridoo practice. I don't know what you did, but you had a bad experience with this Tasmanian devil, and that now causes you to have a physical and emotional, a biased reaction anytime you see a Tasmanian devil. Now, to take it a step further, because you were on your walkabout in Australia, now anytime you see anything from Australia, you start freaking out too. You see Australian flag, you start freaking out. You see Hugh Laurie, you hear his accent, you start, that's the guy from a house, he's Australian. You hear his accent, you start freaking out. Somebody gives you a Foster, you start freaking out. You can't go to the Outback Steakhouse with your significant other anymore. Why? Because you have all this bias, and it all started with the Tasmanian devil. And that's sometimes what happens to us in the workplace. We have an experience. It could be with one person from a cultural group. It could be something our parents had told us over and over again, or it could be images we see on TV, and so we have these experience, and now we've translated this one experience or our limited experience with everyone from a demographic, right? Whether it's women, whether it's people from the LGBT community, whether it's Hispanic people or black people or people from Africa or people from Norway, we start having these feelings. We start feeling some type of way. We may not even be aware, and we start maybe having some negative feelings about people from certain demographics, certain groups, and so we become biased. And so if someone applies for a job that's from, we'll just continue and pick on the Australians. I'm sorry, Australians, if you're listening to this, but I do love Australians, and I'll make it up to you when I go to Sydney. But if we see someone from Australia, we say we can't hire that person, or it's just a little thing that creeps in our mind because it's not that overt, right? But we see someone from Australia and we just know this person's just not right. We may not be able to hire them. It's not going to work for me to work with this person from Australia. It's between two people. I can't utilize this Australian person, or I saw this person eating a steak from the Outback. No, that's not going to be right. It's those things happen, and that's kind of how bias begins to work. And so it can happen unconsciously, with job applications. So we see different job applications with people with certain sounding names or different genders, or if we are in schools as professors, we start to say, well, we can't. You start like scheduling things, and you may not give equal access to certain people from certain demographics. And so we have to pay attention to our bias and be aware of the blind spots maybe that we have in our lives, and think about our history and what is causing these things. And so there's some behavioral shifts that we need to make, but there's also some systemic things that we can do if we want to combat bias. Let me go to my screen here. I want to just talk about a few things that I think that can help us if we want to overcome some of the bias that we have to deal with. Hold on. I'm still working. All right. One of the things that we may need to do is kind of change how we view success, right? I'm not going to go through all 7 things, but there are 7 things that I usually advise people to do. And I have a blog post about some of these things. You can just read that. But examine and broaden your definition of success. Sometimes we think that people from certain backgrounds or that have a certain pedigree are the ones, that we should choose. That's what success means. And so we eliminate access to other people that may come from other backgrounds that we're not as familiar with, or we just haven't attributed those to success. So, if someone went to Harvard or if they went to Yale, they are an all-star. But what if they went to an HBCU or they went to a little rural college? They may be just as qualified to be part of your workforce. But if you don't look beyond the typical, then sometimes we can become biased, and we limit access for people that could be really good contributors to our team. Another thing we have to do is consider how people add to the group. Sometimes we just get so locked into success that we forget that other people can bring things to our team. Not saying that you won't be successful, right? But what I'm saying is that we say, well, we know Joe can do it, or we know someone that looks like Joe can do it, or we know that someone that looks like Mary can do it, that we forget that there are other gifts and skills that can help broaden the teams. Diverse teams are helpful. You get to pull in new ideas. You get to change the status quo. So bring in some of the diverse ideas from different people and see how they can enhance your team. What does your team need? Everyone on your team shouldn't think alike. You don't need monolithic teams. Even though you may have had some success with monolithic teams, just think about the growth that can happen if you are open to a more diverse and inclusive team. Well, hey, I have a great blog post about bias. I'm going to put that link down below. I would just encourage you to go to my blog post, read a little bit about bias, and then think about what you need to change in your organization to root out implicit bias, and what do you need to change, maybe even in your own life or your way that you're approaching things to root out bias. Thank you so much for coming, for joining me during this time. I hope this information was helpful. I know it was short, but hey, tune in, keep coming back. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Thank you and have a great day. Bye bye.